A strong tide of religious revival sentiment swept across the British world in the 1730s and 1740s. This time period of great religious fervor became known as the Great Awakening, which witnessed native British citizens and British colonists joining new evangelical churches like the Baptists and the Methodists. One of the leading figures of the Great Awakening was George Whitefield. Whitefield was born in Gloucester, England in 1714. Even though his family was poor in comparison to surrounding families, he was able to be well educated in the free grammar school of his hometown. During his tenure at school, Whitefield admitted to being addicted to lying, a filthy talking, a filthy talker, and foolish jesting. After the grammar school, Whitefield decided to go to Oxford, where he became a devout Christian and honed his convictions to God. While attending Oxford, he was engaged in a regular ministerial life at the Tower Chapel in London. Once he returned from his schooling, he gave his first sermon in his hometown of Gloucester. After his first sermon, Whitefield became popular, and those that listened to his sermons believed that he was an extremely talented orator. The painting used as the background for this video depicts Whitefield giving one of his famous sermons to a group of people eager to hear his ideas. This became commonplace wherever he went. Frank Lambert points out in his academic piece entitled Peddler and Divinity, George Whitefield and the Great Awakening, 1737 to 1745, that crowds would seemingly materialize out of nowhere to hear his stirring speeches about a new birth. Although Whitefield did not create the concept of a new birth, he constructed his own meaning. That meaning, according to Lambert, quote, transcended traditional church boundaries, end quote, and needed to be delivered to mass audiences. Unlike other major religious speakers at the time, Whitefield argued that the message could be adequately given outside of the walls of a church. These audiences included regularly those from different religious backgrounds, like Quakers, Anglicans, Anabaptists, and other groups that you could find out in England and the British colonies. In order to profess his religious ideas and the themes behind the Great Awakening, Whitefield believed that a strong financial foundation was needed. Whitefield became famous for employing printers to make pamphlets and papers that described his thoughts to those that were unable to personally make an appearance at one of his famous sermons. Along with his pamphlets, Whitefield also attempted to practice philanthropy, to spread his influence in the Great Awakening. Historian Kristen Bayless argues in her piece titled George Whitefield and Public Accounting in Colonial America that Whitefield was, quote, fixated on the idea of establishing an orphanage in Georgia to impact the poor, persecuted European Protestants that found themselves in a harsh colony compared to those of New England. Whitefield continued to attempt to spread his influence of religious awakening across the entire British world. His writings became more and more prevalent in the British colonies. Whitefield sent printed versions of his sermons and writings to famous colonial preachers like Benjamin Coleman and Jonathan Edwards. He also influenced the colonists by traveling to America in 1739. During his time in America, he gave many sermons and discussions that impacted the leading religious figures of the colonies. Whitefield was certainly able to make a substantial difference in the religious makeup of both England and the British colonies before he passed away in 1770. Thank you.